So today is known as Spy Wednesday. Sounds very James Bond, does it not? And it actually is, just as it sounds. It's about a spy. It's about a betrayer. So Jesus had 12 very close friends. We know them as the 12 disciples. One of those friends eventually agrees to betray Jesus, and his name is Judas Iscariot. Now, the name Judas has become synonymous with betrayal. Maybe you've heard someone called a Judas, which implies that they've betrayed someone very close to them. Or maybe you've heard the phrase a Judas kiss, which was the signal that Judas gave to let the mob know who Jesus was. He kissed him on the cheek. So in Matthew's gospel, and Matthew's the very first book of the New Testament, Matthew tells the story of the moment that Judas decides to betray Jesus. So Jesus and his friends are all gathered together for a dinner party at a man named Simon's house. And they're all gathered together, they're eating together, having a good time, when all of a sudden someone comes in uninvited. This woman just walks into the home very uninvited. Now, this woman already had a bad reputation before all this took place, but this just kind of was too much for them. Coming in uninvited, breaking up this dinner party. Well, she comes in and she goes to Jesus and stands above Jesus, and she has this very expensive bottle of perfume. This was really expensive perfume. It might have cost her everything she owned. And she opens up this bottle of perfume and she starts to pour it on Jesus' head. She starts to anoint him. Now, the significance of what she's doing is really kind of lost on us in our modern day culture, but just know that this was an act that was full of intimacy and reverence. She was doing something special for Jesus. She was honoring Jesus. Well, like I said, this was too much for many there, including Jesus' closest friends. So they start grumbling. What a waste of money! Right? She could have sold this expensive perfume and given that money to the poor. How easily we cloak our own unrighteousness with righteous words and sentiments, right? Well, Matthew tells us that it was at this time, Jesus knows what they're doing and knows what they're grumbling about and what they're saying. And so he looks to all of them and he says, what she has done for me is something good. And he goes on to say, actually, what she has done for me will be talked about all throughout the world, all throughout history. And we're living it out right now. We're talking about that very event. And then Matthew also tells us this is the moment that Judas decides to betray Jesus. And so in Matthew 26 and verse 14, we read these words. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest, and he said, what will you give me if I betray Jesus to you? So they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. And so it strikes me on this Wednesday of Holy Week, on the Spy Wednesday of Holy Week, right? Just a few days before we remember Jesus' crucifixion on Good Friday, I'm struck by the dichotomy in the story. One person, the uninvited woman, she seeks to approach Jesus with the attitude of, what can I do for him? Another person, one of Jesus' closest friends, approaches Jesus with the attitude of, what can Jesus do for me? And I think that dichotomy still exists today, right? We still have these two different approaches to Jesus. Some approach Jesus with the attitude of, what can Jesus do for me? Or what can the church do for me? While others ask, what can I do for Jesus? Or what can I do for the church. And so on this Spy Wednesday, as we prepare for Good Friday, as we prepare for Easter, I think it's important that we look deep within ourselves and have an honest moment of introspection and ask, which am I? Which am I? Am I the one seeking to do for Jesus, or am I seeing what Jesus can do for me?